Sweet. Everything seems to be working here pretty good. Let me get this chat out. I know it's starting a lot sooner than a lot of people thought. Apologies for that. I didn't really know when Destiny wanted to go live when I first set up this live stream sort of thing. But basically what I'm doing right now is I'm waiting for him to pull me into his room on Discord. And then we're gonna have a little chat about some of the race stuff that's been going on, you know. Yeah, that kind of stuff should be interesting. Oh, what's going on, chat? Hello, everybody. Hello. Bring Patty on. You know, I thought about asking if you wanted to have Patty on. I thought about that. I thought that might be interesting to do. Let me get you guys into this really quick. So, generic YouTube chat. No, we're gonna do that. Width will be 500 and size 800. Let's try that. There we go. There's some beautiful people in the chat. Hey, how's it going, everybody? How you doing? Yeah, I've talked to Destiny before, and it actually went really well. For the life of me, I can't remember what we were talking about at the time. It was something. I don't know. It was something. But yeah, it ended up being a really productive chat. I thought it was interesting. Aw, Liberal Lunacy. Shannon, I love you, Shannon. You're great. Shannon, aka Liberal Lunacy, wonderful person. Wonderful. Just recently had a baby. Congrats on the baby. Lots of great people on today. What's up? Triax, Sergeant Buck, Fendrin, Adrian, Fendrin, Adam, Quentin, One Fuck Canuck, Martin, Jimmy Stiffingers. How's it going, everybody? Sequoia Gonzo. Jeff, does Destiny understand race because he's a rich white boy? I don't know if he's rich. I've never heard that he has like shit tons of money. Maybe he does. If he does, good for him. Hopefully it was working hard or some shit like that and not just, you know, inherited wealth. That's always makes me a little jelly. Mostly because of student loans, you know what I mean? Yeah. Hello, Prince. Prince, we need to do our Patreon interview thing here pretty soon. But yeah. Last time I spoke to Steve, I didn't stream it on my end. Mostly ended up just going to his. But basically, I was sitting here and I was thinking to myself, am I going to make a video about like the PewDiePie thing, racial epithets, and include like something about Omni Destiny about Steve in it? Or am I instead going to do the stream? I wasn't really sure. I was trying to figure it out. I have a shit ton of projects that I need to do on my main channel, so that's why I was a bit conflicted. But he popped up again and he was like, "Hey, are we gonna do this or what?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, sure, fuck it, let's just do it, man. It's cool. Let's just do it." So that's where we're at. Shoop de whoop. How's it going today? My day is going pretty good. Dropped the kid off. He's still getting used to the whole act of me dropping him off at school. He still gets a little upset, a little scared every time I do it. But it's the same thing as when I drop him off with the babysitter. Within like 3 or 4, not even that, maybe like 60 to 120 seconds, like 2 minutes after I leave, he's not crying anymore. He's just like, "Oh, okay, it's fine. Everything's okay." And then he has a great time at school, which is good. So, liking that, enjoying it, enjoying time to be able to work and research things. But I can tell you, so yesterday, I have this huge, and my organization system is so fucking terrible. It is abominable how I try and keep my shit organized. But somebody sent me this video of an anti-vaxxer, and it looked pretty bad. And I started watching it, and it was just as bad as I thought it would. How old is Winter? Winter is 5. But like I do with anything that any of the pseudoscience people that I do videos on, I started researching their background, and this person, who I am going to probably end up having to make quite a few videos about, as I started researching them, I fell down the most insane rabbit hole I've ever seen in my life. It was insane. So this person thinks that they have superpowers. They have superpowers. They believe that they were part of a satanic cult and watched people being sacrificed and escaped like 15 years of being brutally sexually assaulted and all sorts of... There's no evidence for it. Police have investigated some of her claims. Like, it's all like wingnut things. Like, it just goes so crazy. And the more I looked into it, the deeper and crazier it got. And this person who's taken care of people before, and acted basically like their psychiatrist, they've had patients, at least one patient, kill themselves while in their care. Yeah, so it's going to be pretty gnarly, pretty nasty. That's what ended up happening yesterday. Yesterday, I was just gonna take her one video that they sent me, and I was gonna just make a quick like, "fuck you, shred it up, here's some fucking science" kind of video, but I ended up for 6 hours straight just watching the most insane shit and trying to get my head around it. Oh man, I kind of need to poop. I have to debate and I kind of need to poop. Oh, let's pop that extra button. I had a nice greasy breakfast and it's making me need to fart and poop. I'm very bloated. Are we waiting on Destiny? Yes, we're waiting on Destiny. Destiny's going to drag me into his room. Yeah. The Phantom Girl on Tumblr. I do kind of remember something about that. I do. I don't know. I remember Sequoia was asking if I'm going to be doing any more morning gaming streams. Yeah, maybe. The thing is that now that the schedule is totally different with me and the kiddo, when usually I would start up my gaming streams is when is when I'm like taking him to school, and then I'm running around doing my early errands before I come home to start working. So I gotta kind of figure out how I'm gonna balance that. Squatty Potty sponsor? I want Squatty Potty to sponsor me, man. I really do. That'd be great. My girlfriend is getting her nipples pierced. Any tips? Yes. The best way to treat nipple piercings: get a shot glass, warm water with salt. Taste it to make sure it tastes like sea salt. Tastes like seawater. And that's the right consistency that you want. And 3 times a day, maybe 4 if you need to, stick them over the nipples and just like slowly shake for about 5 minutes. It's a lot of relief. It's a good way to like keep them clean. Yeah. And don't wear any fucking don't wear any fishnet shirts. That's a bad idea. Mem said the last unicorn made her brawl her eyes out. That's true. That is very true. That happened. And why did I do that to her? Because everybody needs to watch The Last Unicorn at least once. It's a great movie. She was a ghost, but she started losing her ethereality the older she got, and that was her explanation for being visible now. Oh, I do remember that! Yes, I do remember that. On a scale of 1 to Keck, how cringe will this be? I have no idea. I have no idea. Oh. Hello! Hello.
Oh, hey, what's up, buddy?
How you doing, man?
Doing great. How are you doing, dude?
I kind of need to poop, to be honest with you.
Yeah, do you want to go do that real quick? We can chill. We can wait.
I'm debating on it. I mean, I already pooped like 2 times today. I kind of feel like maybe I've given my body enough leeway at this point that, you know, I don't really want to reward it with being testy and trying to like control my life.
You know, if anything was going to control your life, I think bowel movements would be an acceptable thing to submit yourself to.
Probably, yeah. That's probably the only thing that I would let control my life, to be honest. Well, I did get married, so I guess I can't say that, right?
Sure.
Oh man.
Do you want to go take care of that, or?
Nah, it's fine. It's all right. I mean, you and I have an ability to communicate really thoroughly and really pretty succinctly. You know, we keep finding ourselves in these little kerfuffles on Twitter and whatnot, but we always end up able to communicate pretty damn well. So okay. I don't imagine we're gonna be like at each other's throats for hours or some shit. It's fine.
Yeah, sure. All right. Well, hit me up, dude. Where do we start?
Okay, so I think we have to first establish a good baseline.
Yeah, that'd be good.
We have to.
It'd be nice to do this before we start slinging insults on Twitter, but yeah, we can go ahead and do that now. Sure.
Yeah, but it's Twitter. It's easy to do.
Yeah, it is, especially when you got that narrative to push. Whew. You don't do it as bad as other people, though. But
well, I'd say I don't think you do it as bad as other people either. But I don't really even know if I'd understand like any kind of narrative specifically that you push. Like that's probably one of the things that I like about you is.
Yeah, I try my hardest not to. So I get into the Twitter wars, and I just kind of sling shit everywhere. But yeah, let's.
Okay, so
right, what baseline?
Okay, so the baseline is this all stems from PewDiePie.
A little bit, yeah.
More or less. I mean, that's like what spurred the whole conversation on. If the whole PewDiePie thing happened, none of us would be talking about it and that sort of thing.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay,
I'm saying kind of because I never actually condemned PewDiePie for saying anything.
Well, that's
the ironic thing about all of this.
That's what I wanna to figure out because so like an hour ago, I sat down. Because the whole conversation has kind of gotten away from us for the past, I don't know, 16 hours, something like that. So I went to go and specifically see like what your position.
Oh, what I said about it?
Specifically on PewDiePie. You said a lot about the DMCA, and I pretty much agreed with. I think I agreed with what you were saying that the DMCA was bullshit.
Yeah, so you don't have any legal basis for it. You can't revoke a license in the past and then try to act like you never did. That's bullshit. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so. How do you feel about it's quite an immense gaffe that PewDiePie used?
So I'm gonna, if you want, I could give you my breakdown on why I think some words are okay and some words aren't okay. It's actually going to be very, 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 very libertarian in nature, which might surprise you. But do you want me to give you that or? No,
by all means, please. Yes.
Okay. So basically, the way that I view it is I have a hope in my heart that this stemmed from my late teens and early 20s that no word should be considered out of bounds or harmful, that everybody should be able to deal with things, that words are just words, etc., etc. So inside, that's more or less my view of language. Now, as I've aged, pragmatically, my issue with words is that I don't want to do things, and I don't want other people to do things that might intentionally or unintentionally empower people that have horrible opinions.
Sure.
So, for instance, a long time ago, and I slip up from time to time. I'm not perfect. I've been a gamer my whole life, so a lot of this language is endemic to our culture.
Yes,
so,
it is.
Faggot was a really big word that I used to say all the time, for example. I used to say faggot all the time, blah, 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 blah. I was staying for 3 months in another country doing gaming-related stuff. I ran into some people that said faggot, and I realized that when he said it, I had an epiphany. I was like, wow, this guy actually hates gay people. I'm really uncomfortable saying faggot ever around this guy. I don't want to say this around this guy because I don't know if he's like thinking that I'm like reaffirming his beliefs or something. And after that, I had that realization. If you've listened to or if you've looked for it, other people have kind of had similar revelations. Chris Rock had a thing about I don't even know if I can say the words, but his famous skit that, do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, there's 2 types of people. There's black people and there's niggas.
Yeah. So you got that he regrets doing now because a lot of genuinely racist people listen to it and kind of get off from it.
Right.
And then you have Chappelle, who also had similar moments where he makes skits making fun of, stereotypes from everybody, black people, white people, whatever. And he got a laugh and he was like, well, I don't know about that laugh. That guy sounds like he might actually hate black people, So that's more or less my view. So when somebody asks me, like, is it okay to say the N-word or the whatever racial slur? Generally, I really don't care. It usually depends on the audience and the setting and the place. So for me personally, I'd say depending on who I'm with, I might say some crazy fucking shit. If you catch like a personal conversation between me and a couple friends or whatever, if you were to like find a way to sneak record it, I might say some abhorrent fucking shit. Now, it's not going to be abhorrent in that like I think that black people are genetically predisposed to being less intelligent than white people, but it might be like me saying some like crazy words or whatever, right? Because whatever. When I'm live streaming to an audience, I generally don't say any of that kind of stuff just because I try to be a little careful. I slip up every now and then with the word faggot. I try not to, but every now and then it'll slip out. But I try not to do that because I don't want to reaffirm that shit. So the recent thing that's the two things that are getting posted of me recently are one, when I wasn't streaming, I went into my chat and because I wanted to be edgy for 2 days, I like just said like basically just like threw like a bunch of like random fucking racial slurs together in my website's chat, not in Twitch chat and not while I was streaming, but just some like really fucking edgy shit. Sure. At this point, my audience is mostly fucking SJWs because all the right-leaning people are not my fan anymore. So like I don't really think much of it. But like in terms of like on stream or like saying racial slurs all the time, this is something that gets hurled at me a lot. That like, you Destiny, didn't you say the N-word all the time? Didn't you call people racial? Like, this has never really happened. I had one big incident a long time ago, 5 years ago, in my StarCraft history, where I called one guy, I thought he was a white dude, and I called him a racial slur for Asians because he started typing like a Korean, which was really stupid. I shouldn't have said it, but I did. That was like my one big gaffe. And then any other time you see me kind of memeing with those words is usually because I'm making fun of something that just recently happened. So for instance, there's a screenshot now from like 5 years ago where I say, you're doing a dumb N-word build or whatever. There was a guy called Orb who had just gotten fired from a huge StarCraft 2 team because he was saying stuff like, and I was kind of like making fun of it with another guy that was on his team. I think Huck. We were kind of making fun of it, but like, other than that, like I don't really do like racial slur shit.
That's pretty fucking good, actually.
So I get a lot of that stuff from like 5 years ago. But yeah, so pretty much okay. So with that all being said, insofar as PewDiePie goes, if like a personal convo like leaked of him and he like said a word or whatever, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really sure how I would feel, but my reasoning there is that I don't know what PewDiePie actually thinks. I don't know if he's racist or not. At this point, I can't call him racist because I don't think I've seen anywhere near enough to deduct that. He does have some views that kind of make me wonder in terms of what he posts for content, but I would never call PewDiePie racist. I just don't have enough to say it. Even if I wanted to, I don't have enough to say it. So like, so should he be saying like the N-word on stream and shit? I mean, I don't think anybody should just because of what you can reaffirm or whatever. But I'm not out here like on the front SJW lines like making videos about how PewDiePie is a horrible person. I actually didn't really say much at all. Actually, the only commentary I really gave on it was I thought it was funny that like in streaming, like it actually is kind of hard sometimes to keep yourself from slipping up. And it's funny that PewDiePie messed up so hard in like the first week or two. And then it's kind of funny that this comes off the whole Nazi shit. But that was a mouthful.
No, it's totally fine. I can totally relate because like I do a lot of streaming as well, and I have definitely had quite a few gaffes. And also, real quick before we get into it, none of us want to like make it so we can't either monetize or get a fucking strike for any of the things that we're saying. So let's switch the N-word with muffin, or muffins for plural. It'll be a lot easier that way. We don't have to like breach it. We don't have to use the goddamn phrase the N-word. I fucking hate the N-word.
Yeah, I do too. Well, I used to say the actual N-word, but then I got banned for 3 days for saying it, so now I have to say the N-word. But yeah, I agree.
Okay.
But sure, we can change it with muffin, sure.
Yeah. So, if one was to go and scour the internet, they could probably find several instances of me very, very loudly saying muffin. Quite a few times.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna run from it. I'm not gonna hide from it or whatnot. But also it's a lot in like kind of what you're saying. The context and the set and setting is really dependent on how the word is actually used. Like for instance, I've never called a black person a muffin. Never. Okay. And I never would. I never fucking would because that's just a fucking shit awful thing to say. I have called 2 white people muffins before. One to their face and one online, and that was specifically because it was the worst possible thing I could think of to call them.
Sure. One really quick, careful distinction to make in terms of I'm not saying you're right or wrong, but just a distinction between my point of view. I actually am not really concerned much with the intention. I mean, that's an important thing, but I'm more concerned with who hears it and feels emboldened by it. So, for instance, I could use any number of words and it'll never have a racial intention, but I'm worried about who would be emboldened by it. So, like, I don't still say faggot knowing that I don't hate gay people. I just don't say that because I don't know who's going to hear it and then feel empowered by the fact that I say it, if that makes sense, even with like a good intention.
Okay, so that's a good point, and that ties into something that I'm having to deal with right now too. That I'm actually actively trying to change the conversation about. Kekistan.
Oh
right?
God.
Oh, I know. No, trust me, I know, I understand. But the thing is like the very notion of what the meme was and how we created it, because I helped create the damn thing, was specifically to take the piss out of identity politics. The reason it uses a mock version of the Nazi battle flag is because we want to piss off the fucking Nazis. Like, the whole idea of it was to be against identitarian policies and authoritarian practices. It was to piss off, you know, people on the social justice side as much as the alt-right side. And the problem is that because we as free memeing shitposters cannot control how the perception is. The perception of Kekistan is controlled by and large by the mainstream media, and the mainstream media has decided to throw us in with the very people that we had designed it to take the piss out of. So that problem of perception and emboldeningness is always something that is on my mind, and it's something that I'm actively having to try and find strategies to counteract. Now, when it comes to like, go ahead.
Or did you want to give examples first? It's fine if you want.
Well, I mean, I was just gonna say, like with the word muffin, you know, if you a good example of what you're talking about. There's a YouTuber. I actually really like them. They're right leaning, but they're not alt right. I don't think they're racist at all. But they, for some weird reason, yesterday, or maybe it was the day before yesterday, took the clip of PewDiePie saying it and then typed out "our guy," and I'm like, dude. That's not funny.
Yeah, so like this is so what you're talking about is a really, so there's so many things that tie up in here. This is the intersection of so many different things right now, okay? So firstly, it's really, really hard to speak about certain things with nuance because of the type of people that feel emboldened by what you say. So here's a position that I have, okay? Two positions that I have. One, I think that socially, if we were completely equitable in every sense of the word, if we didn't push anybody towards certain gender roles, I think that men and women would be a lot more equivalent in the terms of jobs that they choose today. I think that you'd have a lot more females working in computer stuff. You'd have more males as nurses. I think that for the most part, I think that would be true. That's one position I hold. A second position I hold is I think that there probably are biological differences, including neuro ones, between men and women, and that distribution will probably never reach 50-50. That there probably are some biological differences between men and women that will always keep things from being 100% equal, right? And I'm not even talking just physically, right?
It is known, Khaleesi. Yeah, it's pretty rooted in biology for sure.
Yeah, but now you have to be really careful when you make certain statements, because if I start tweeting, like, by the way, guys, biological differences between men and women are real, the responses that I'm gonna get are like, finally somebody says it. Like, get these women out of fucking computer science. Get these, why are women trying to do coding? Like, get these fucking idiots out here, right? Or you know, like, you have to be. It's really, really hard to navigate those waters. Okay, and the thing that irritates me the most, the thing that pisses me off the most, and I think and I'm not I don't necessarily like you. I don't consider you like a personal friend or anything. So if there was shit to call you, if there was shit to call you out here, I would call you out on it. But I don't see you do this. So this is a compliment to you. I'm just ensuring you that, you know, the compliment is sincere. I don't see you do this as much as others, but I believe that there are people that will do this shit where they kind of like mention something all day, but they don't go super far with it, and they try to pretend that they have a view that they don't. So let me give you a very specific example, okay? Somebody like Sargon of Akkad or Blair White might say something where like, I'm a liberal, I don't like Trump. They'll say that. That'll be their stated belief. But then when you dig through their videos, every single thing they do when they're talking about Trump is just attacking people that don't like Trump, and then talking about how good something Trump is doing is. And it's like, okay, so what is your actual position here? Because you're trying to like have your cake and eat it too, you know?
I guess that would be kind of a problem with PR and perception too. I mean, so
I don't believe that though. I think it's intentional. I don't want to say malicious, but I think it's intentional.
Well, okay, you think it's kind of like a dog whistle then?
A little bit. Dog whistling is usually for other things, but yeah, sure, you can.
Right. It's
well, yeah. So something like Kekistan, right? Like, so this is a big meme that I talk about, right? It was really fucking funny. Pepe the Frog got kind of popular on the internet, and the media did a really brain dead article on it about how like, oh, Pepe the Frog is a symbol of white power, blah 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 blah, which was like funny because the media's clueless. But then like a year later, it's actually true. Like if I'm online and I start reading people's Twitter's profile that have like Pepe the Frog and shit, it's full blown fucking white nationalism, like 95% of the time. Like it's actually a really good way of finding who's actually fucking racist, right?
I agree. agree.
Yeah, the group that started out saying, like, we don't want to talk about identity politics. Now let me tell you about my plan for America to be an ethnocentric state. Like,
Well,
what the fuck?
wait, hang on. It's okay. Maybe our perceptions are different because I'm actively I'm in the middle of this thing. And let me tell you, it's not a very comfortable place to be. It's really not. Like I'm not like happy that I'm in the position that I am, but I am because I feel like it is the most legitimate and honest and the right kind of place for me to be. So you have and I honestly blame Hillary a lot for the whole Pepe thing too, because like that just went absolutely overboard, absolutely fucking overboard. Yeah, the fucking alt-right, and as the alt-right started hemorrhaging people who realized that alt-right started actually meaning racist. Because it wasn't originally. It just was an alternative to the right and people who wanting to meme because they thought it was hilarious. So as people started waking up, they realized, like, oh shit, I'm shoulder to shoulder with an absolute white nationalist fucking ethnosator. I'm not alt-right anymore. No, fuck you. As that started happening and it started hemorrhaging people, it's true that the alt-right kept using Pepe because, well, to be honest with you, the alt-right can't fucking meme on their own. They're not very clever fucking people, and they have to use rehashed old fucking memes. So they tried to keep Pepe fresh, and the only thing that kept Pepe fresh is the fact that people were scared because suddenly they see it as a white nationalist symbol. So the night that Kekistan, the meme, became a thing. It wasn't just a 4chan thing that they talked about a little bit, but we took it and we turned it into what it is now. The reason we chose Pepe is because we believe in meme freedom. We believe that you cannot take a meme and make it about one thing. Memes are free. You can't make Pepe a white nationalist symbol. We're not going to let you. We're going to take it back. We're gonna fucking take it back. Fuck you. You want to steal a meme? Fuck you. Now, the big problem that I have with this, and one of the reasons why I'm so fucking upset lately, is that this effort that we're trying to do, which is an altruistic point, it is absolute altruism, trying to make it so you cannot take something as stupid and pointless as a fucking meme and turn it into a hate symbol. Our efforts to try and combat against that with Kekistan have been completely castrated by the mainstream media, feeding into and now turning Kekistan into an alt-right attributed thing, which it is not, and it never has been. So, is that a problem with PR? Yeah, of course it is. It's a huge problem with PR. But it's not, and never has been, specifically that. And I don't think it's very fair to stick Kekistan in with the alt-right, because the alt-right can't fucking meme, and Kekistan can. Why are you helping them out with their memeing? What the fuck? This is bullshit. So that's why I've been really frustrated lately.
Gotcha. I guess I haven't seen your efforts in particular. All I know is that when I start, because a large body of my content has been arguing with like race realists and shit, that as soon as I like start seeing a bunch of Pepe the Frogs show up in my feed, I know exactly what to expect, and it's not usually anything very nice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of alt-righters. I mean, like, okay, here's another thing too. We have to divorce Pepe from Kekistan.
Pepe from what? Sorry, your mic cuts out.
Pepe from Kekistan, because it's not just simply like all of Pepe is Kekistan or Kekistan is all Pepe. Kekistan is Kekistan.
I usually see him used so much in conjunction that I thought that like Pepe was like the flag bearer or something like that.
Nah, Pepe was just a thing that spurred it on. And it is still like a meme that Kekistan people use, but yeah, I mean, you're gonna have these talentless, humorless fucks with their Pepe avatars and shit showing up and babbling a bunch of shit, usually with like an SS cap on. I mean, I have all those fuckers muted on Twitter. They hate me. They absolutely fucking hate me. So I totally am with you on that.
Gotcha.
But you know, it does come down to like the basic perception. Now, you stated Sargon, you stated Blair. Well, Blair is my friend, but I don't really talk to Blair hardly at all. But I do talk to Carl. I talk to Carl all the time. Yeah. And I can, like, I don't want to speak for Carl, but I can genuinely say that Carl is not a fan of Trump, hasn't been a fan of Trump for a little bit. He's not that much anymore. But Carl still, he keeps ending up in the same position. And I know it's one that's been frustrating him for a while. And it's one I've tried to talk him out of, personally, which is, as much as he might not like Trump and he might see some of the stupid things that Trump does, he sees the other side as worse. And that's really what it always comes down to.
Okay. Do you know okay, so firstly, to address your first point, if I go back like 2 years on his channel, he's got like every single video on Trump is just him attacking people, attacking Trump. Like CNN blackmail, Donald Trump versus the liberal elite, This Week in Stupid on Trump, Trump salt mining. Like, all of these things are just... So how am I ever supposed to come to the conclusion that he doesn't like Trump when all he does is attack the people that attack Trump?
Well, I don't think he really... That's also the other thing, too. I don't think he really necessarily cares. I mean, I think...
Cares about what?
I think, well, people perceiving him accurately. I think sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't. Carl doesn't always do the best PR for himself either. He just basically... He kind of relies... He relies on people who are diehard viewers to understand his position because they've seen his transformation throughout the years. You know, I mean, it's kind of like, fuck, dude. People will automatically assume that they knew how I voted for months until I revealed that I actually did vote for Trump as a joke because I live in a blue state and it didn't actually even fucking matter. But now, holy freaking shit! Anytime I get into a politics discussion, people are like, "Yeah, but he's a fucking Trump voter, so fuck him." Like, what?
Okay, so can you see from my perspective, like, how frustrating, because I view that entire side of the internet as being, and I'm somebody that has been attacked now by SJWs and right-leaning people more brutally than most. And when I say more brutally than most, I mean 4 or 5 years ago, I had SJWs that would email my sponsors, my sponsors' clients, like, would go hardcore to start. And now I've also been attacked by people on the right. They function very, very, very similarly. And the irony is astounding. So when I tell you, you tell me, okay, hey, Sargon believes in X, okay? He believes that Trump is bad. Right. And then I say, I can't find any evidence of this anywhere. And I'm familiar, to some extent, with a decent body of Sargon's work, okay? I've seen a number of his videos. I'm aware of all the titles. I watch his Twitter. Like, I know a decent chunk now, and I haven't watched every video on his channel, or probably even like half of it, but I've watched a good amount of Sargon content, enough that if he really didn't like Trump, I should be able to see that, right? But here comes Destiny, and anytime Destiny might even be critical of anything remotely to the right, now I've got people who are like literally digging up screenshots from 5 years ago to prove I'm racist, when like a large body, like, do you know the alternative hypothesis?
Oh, I know, okay, so I know Ryan Falk.
I've argued with the founder of that website, the guy himself. I've argued with one of the writers on the Daily Stormer, right? Yeah. I've had a whole like 2-month period where it was nonstop race realists, IQ realists, like all of this shit. Like, I have a very big body of work where if anybody watches my content, they know very clearly there is no mystery as to where I stand on any of these topics. It's very obvious. But like I say, like, one screenshot comes out and it's like, this is Destiny, this is blah, 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 and it's like, so 100% sure. And it's like, really? And then when I say something like, okay, well, how does Trump feel, or how does Sargon feel about Trump? Well, now, even though he's got tons of videos attacking Trump, you know, haters, he actually, it's like, what? The double standard.
I understand. I see. I would say that by and large, somebody was just mentioning this to me, and I think it's kind of on point too. One of the main differences is that it's not necessarily that Sargon defends Trump. It's more that he attacks the tactics that people use to criticize him, and he's done that about the right too. And people see it as kind of like a defense of the right, and it's not necessarily. I mean, there's like a huge nuance to it. I think if there's one really big failing about Sargon, it's that he expects people to understand his nuance far more than they usually will. He's too charitable, and I think he also kind of expects too much of people sometimes.
I feel like, so if I take this a step further, and I don't remember if I told you this criticism or not, my criticism of Sargon has always been that I think that he's woefully ill-equipped to delve into politics, is that it seems like he's a very, very, very shallow, he's very stupid, is essentially my criticism of Sargon. So the reason why I say this is because he's built his entire brand of quote-unquote politics around social media and what people say on social media. So Trump or Sargon, insofar as what I've seen, has never, ever, ever delved into a discussion or a video concerning policy. It's always been, look at what this guy, random guy, said on CNN, or look at what this guy said on Twitter, or these people said on Tumblr. And his opinions get so warped that he thinks that the world is just whatever he gets, whatever memes are sent to him on like Tumblr or Twitter, right? So my evidence of this, because that's a pretty extreme claim, right, is he literally is so into the anti-SJW camp. He's so in there and so clueless about everything. He thought that Le Pen was going to take the French election by storm. He thought she was going to win massively, even though she was fucked for so long. Like from the start, she never had a bad or a snowball's chance in hell of winning that election. He actually thought she was going to win because he's on this like huge anti-SJW train, but he never has a conversation of substance. Like, what did a Democratic senator do? Or what did this politician? It's always like, look at who said this on Tumblr. Look at who said this on Twitter. Like, always.
Well, you know, I would say that could be valid as a criticism, but the problem here is that Sargon doesn't claim to be he doesn't claim to be a political commentator. He claims to be an activist. He claims to be an activist. That's the title that he's given himself.
Yeah, and this is what like people like Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck say. Like, well, this is just an entertainment show. It's not an actual news show. Like people say this,
but they don't talk.
Then they want to. But then they want to dip their toes into politics all the time, and that kind of behavior is irresponsible because you know that your audience goes to you for political information. Like Sargon might say that, like, well, I'm not really into politics, but then he's got like a fan of like fucking like ethno-nationalists and alt-righters that like look to the new Sargon videos and be really excited. And so, and I point out Sargon's not quite.
They don't like him
as bad as other people. Yeah, no, that's true because of the Nazi shit recently, or him being anti-Nazi, which he made. I was actually surprised he made that video. I didn't actually think he would do it, but so you build these fan bases by making all of your content anti-SJW, and it's like at the end of the day, if you never clarify your position on a topic that they won't like, well, like what am I supposed to think about you? You know?
Well, I mean, I've been in that position before where I had to clarify something, and it kind of lost me quite a few subs, actually, quite a few. Especially when I came out against race realism myself. But the the other thing that you have to remember too is that the main content that Sargon's talking about is things like online, as like memes. It's like trends on social movements and that sort of thing. That's because that's the sphere that he operates in, and that's the basic thing that he's talking about. And he also talks about how these things start to infect and morph into real life. It's conversations that I've had with him many times about how the rampant ridiculousness of online bleeds into real life, and it happens a lot. I mean, I bore witness to it when I was last time I was in university. It was insane, absolutely insane.
But this is the problem, is when you talk to somebody like Sargon, or your defense of Sargon was that, like, well, they don't really like Trump, but the left is worse, is that if let's say I want to engage, and this is every conversation, if you can find me somebody that doesn't do this, holy shit, I'll talk to them in a heartbeat, okay? But every single conversation I have to somebody that says that is like this. I go, okay, well, why did you like Trump over Hillary? Like, well, I didn't really like Trump that much, but I hated Hillary. It's like, wow, really? Okay. Well, what policy positions of Trump do you think are superior to Hillary? And they're like, well, did you hear about Pizzagate and the WikiLeaks? And it's like, okay, so do Supreme Court nominations mean nothing to you? What about healthcare reform, immigration reform, foreign policy, the economy, none of these issues? And Carl is the same way. Where is the video on Carl? Like, today I'm going to talk about, the ACA proposals that the Republican Party of the United States is making. Or today I'm going to talk about, we're going to have an in-depth, like, if you're going to tell me, because when I criticize the Republican Party, I'll say something like, evangelical religious belief is cancer in the United States, okay? And so it's like, well, what do you mean by that? And I'll say, well, it manifests in policy in these ways. Republicans constantly advocate against Planned Parenthood and contraception, which are things that help with, childhood pregnancy, abortion rates, out of wedlock children, all the, like, I can give you, here's a problem, and here are the problems that it causes. Here's a symptom, here's a problem. This is a bad belief, and it causes this bad policy. Whereas when you talk to somebody like Carl, like, okay, Carl, what's wrong with fucking feminists? Like, well, the feminists want to take everything from you and make masculinity illegal. Okay, who's proposing legislation to make masculinity illegal? Well, at this one college, this 94% acceptance rate, this one professor got called a male bigot. It's like, okay, Carl, so what the fuck are we talking about right now? Like, I can find you one-off examples of fucking anything. How is this relevant to anything? Aside from the fact that you're showcasing it on your channel. Sorry, go ahead.
That's kind of a false equivalence, a little bit. I mean,
wait, how? But it's not.
Yeah, it kind of is. It kind of is, because on one aspect you're talking about something that is a direct effect on policy, whereas the other one is just talking about a social movement that might have ramifications towards policy. I don't know.
I'm asking you, can you give me examples of this cancerous left thought that's having real policy effects?
Well, let me think about that.
I can name some famous straw men that I know, like Blair White, goes off on, and we can get into the Uncle Tom-esque stuff too if you want to there. But like,
yeah.
have you heard of like the New York legislation
we'll
for trans
get
people?
We'll get to the Uncle Tom thing in a minute, but
Sure.
okay. So okay. As far as it goes on a policy that's being enacted by the government, not so much. As far as more privatized policies or policies in smaller scale areas, yeah, I could see several. And that's kind of one of the things about it too, is that I don't necessarily hold them into the same categories when you're talking about things like Trump, or even senators trying to enact laws, getting bills passed, that sort of thing. I don't equate those to the same thing as the competition between social movements on a much smaller scale, or even on a large scale. I think that they are, in some ways, kind of insulated from each other. They might feed off of each other or bounce off each other at times, but I think that they are distinctly different in specific ways. There's a fear, and I think it is a very valid fear, to be honest with you, that these types of social conversations, these types of strifes between ideologies will leak out further from not just college campuses, not just like average everyday life, not just public perception, but actually into policy. And maybe
okay,
I can't speak.
That's a valid argument.
I can't
but the problem is, right people are doing it now. So like left people, maybe in the future they make some bad law and then by then it's too late. Okay, well right now people on the right are trying to keep black people from voting. Right now people on the right are trying to redraw districts to make them always Republican. Right now, like,
well, gerrymandering has been going on for decades, man, and both sides do it. Both sides.
Yeah, but it's law. If we, I mean, we can go and look up like the most gerrymandered districts. Like this is largely, when you're talking about gerrymandering or keeping people from voting, it's largely a Republican phenomenon. Like
I don't know. I mean,
I mean, like the North Carolina voter things that were struck down. What they tried to do in Texas.
Dude,
I mean, like,
I remember these examples specifically, but also, believe it or not, I remember those specifically because of the types of coverage that they got. For me to be able to take a firm position on it, and maybe this is a cop-out, you can say it is if you want, but before I can make an actual distinct condemnation of one side or the other, or over the other, it would have to be something that I actually did specifically look into myself, sure. which I just have not. But I will say that there's nothing that stops either side from doing it. There are very egregious examples of it being done on one side that I did hear about, but I can't disqualify that it's never happened on the other, you know. It also, I mean, a lot of this too is when it comes to politics, a lot of people don't talk about politics because the central focus of the things that they're talking about are more on social perceptions and basically fighting for the hearts and minds of people with good ideas versus bad ideas. Now, I don't always agree with my friends. I don't. And that's usually when I have conversations with them, usually in private. I very, very rarely like speak out about it in public. I have very private conversations with them. But I can't tell my friends what they should or should not be talking about. I can only advise what's going to happen when they do, or what I see might be potential complications in the future. With what Sargon does, and we're talking about Sargon again. It's funny.
We can talk about any other number of any other right. Like we can talk about Chris Reagan. We can talk about Armored Skeptic.
What's wrong with Chris?
Where we pretend to be this moderate, centrist, enlightened, blah, 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 and then you go and it's like, okay, well, is there really that much of a difference between neo-Nazis and Black Lives Matter? Like, with this bullshit, like, wannabe centrism, enlightened, fucking too scared to take a position on any issue because you're too lazy to do the policy research, that's what these people are, and it's very frustrating. Fucking, I had a big, these are like the examples, right? I have a really big conversation with Lauren Southern, okay, where we're going to talk about fucking immigration, okay, because she wrote a fucking horrible book on it. I'm not even sure if she fucking wrote it or not, but it's so bad that I wouldn't believe that she did it. I bought her fucking book. I read her fucking book. It's horrible. And I did a ton of research for this debate. The most I've ever done for any research in any debate. And as soon as I come on and she realizes it, she cedes the economic part immediately. She's like, oh, well, I don't really care about the economics that much. It wasn't that much of the book. Let's talk about culture. It's like, okay, dude. So you, right? Sargon did this when he had a big discussion with Michael Brooks about the toxicity of Islam. Sargon comes on with all of his normal talking points, but Michael Brooks actually knows a fuck ton of shit about the individual countries, the individual Islamic leaders, leaders, the different sects of Islam. He knows a lot of shit. And as soon as Sargon realizes it, he's like, oh, well, you're a regressive leftist, but I probably agree with you in all the policy. I don't want to talk about that, right? They do this every fucking time. They engage in the worst type of hackery where they don't want to do any reading or research on anything they're talking about. They just want to pick out like tweets that trigger the fuck out of them and then talk about them on their YouTube channel. I
think that's probably the problem here. Is that, and I've seen this happen with a few people, and I can understand. I can understand for the most part. It's probably because they're just ill-equipped to do it, but they still want to talk about it. They want to participate, but they just don't necessarily really understand what they're talking about. This happens with a lot of people. But I gotta say, I'm very confused though, because Chris Rega doesn't really make videos about politics. Not really.
Doesn't he? I feel like I've watched some videos of his doing like the anti-SJW shit.
Well, yeah, sure. He like makes fun of anti-SJW shit, but he doesn't really talk about like Trump or Hillary. Like he's mentioned them in passing a few times here and there, and he's like, wow, this is fucked up. Wow, this is fucked up. This is fucking bullshit. Blah blah blah. Like, you know, he usually when he brings it up, it's usually simply a joke. You know, Chris Reagan's just not really a specifically political guy. You know. I don't know.
Are you familiar with like Thorin or like Richard Lewis or whatever?
A little bit, briefly.
So like the problem that I get is that all of these people, I can put a bow on this one, okay? Is that all of these people want to talk about these, they're not politicians. We're not talking about politics, okay? We're not talking about politics or policy or any of that. I just, every now and then, I'm just going to throw out, you know, this thing about SJWs, this thing about this thing about liberals, this thing about, but I'm not talking about politics, right? And then what happens is, over time, you end up building and amassing this massive fan base of people that are fucking crazy. And then, like, people act surprised that it happens. But you see somebody, like, to put a nice bow on it, you see somebody develops, like, JonTron, where you get these people that, for all intents and purposes, should just be normal fucking people who are somehow like red pilled out of their fucking mind, who are literally fucking rocketing out like poll talking points as quickly as they can. Like, how did this happen? What the fuck? Like, how did you get from gaming to I'm a literal fucking neo-Nazi talking about the gene pool? Like, how did this happen, you know? And I feel like it's, if you want to open your eyes and look, I feel like it's a really easy line to draw from Gamergate to Trump-esque politics. Like, that line is just so easy and obvious to me, but everybody wants to pretend that it doesn't exist, and that's so frustrating.
Well, I've seen plenty of people in the anti-SJW camp that do draw that line, and I don't buy it on either side. Not at all. No. I think that's very, very different.
But hang on. See, or sorry, go ahead.
Let's dial it back real quick because that was a whole lot of information. I'm trying to keep up a little bit.
If I am like rolling, just stop me mid sentence and it's fine. You can stop if you ever want to.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm just trying. If I was any good at taking notes, I'd just like try and like do that. But I'm fucking awful at it. Okay. Whew. Let me take a deep breath. Shit. Okay, so the anti-SJW content creators or the skeptics or whatever label is being tossed around right now. I like to refer to pretty much anybody who makes skeptic content as the new muffins of YouTube. Because everybody anyway, that's a whole different conversation. Because I include myself in that label too. But the thing is, at the end of the day, these aren't politicians. These aren't people that are talking about. These aren't analysts. These aren't. Most of them are not academics. There's a few academics, and they're interesting, wonderful people. Usually, some are a little weird, but they're entertainers. Like these are not political commentators. You can't really hold these people to the same stature as like the Young Turks or something. Which the Young Turks are awful at their fucking job, but at the very least, you can hold them to the fire because they do position themselves as political commentators. Some people do try and pull off the political commentator more than others. Sargon does. Whether that's accurate or not, or whether you think he does a good job at it or not, is whatever. It's, you know, you can have your opinion.
I mean, like, Sargon wants to engage with, like, leading feminist critiquers, right? As much as I fucking hate to say it, like, Anita Sarkeesian is a very prominent figure in, like, the gaming feminist whatever movement.
Right.
He wants to engage her in conversations. Like, how can you say that he's not trying to give substantive, like discourse in regards to these topics? How can he just hide behind, like, well, it's just memes, guys?
Well, I mean, because that's the culture that we live in online. I mean, that's the only answer that's really that you can say is that's that's a culture that we live online, and that's kind of the culture you have to operate within. To change that conversation, you have to change the whole dynamic of it. And that's not an easy thing to do.
But why is he, if he's just an entertaining memer? Like, this goes back to the first thing that we talked about on my views on bad language or whatever, right? Is that, like, he has to understand the impact, like, what he's doing, the people that watch his stuff that are empowered by what he says, that realize that, like...
Well, he does. He's a little bit different. He breaks the mold a little bit from just the entertainment anti-SJW channels. He's because he wants to be an activist, and because he does, whether you agree with his brand of liberalism or not, he does have values that he feels very firmly about, and he does take a stand on them. So a lot of the like damn centrists won't take a position on anything. Like, you can't really say that about Sargon, because he's pretty clear.
Well, like on Trump, he's not very clear. I don't know how he feels about Trump or Brexit. I don't know how he feels about these things. He always says it like, well, I didn't support Brexit, but this is why it happened. It's because of these reasons and the evil SJWs, and they're totally right. And Le Pen is going to win in France because all of these SJWs are evil. And Trump 2018 or 2020, even though, and it's like, I don't know if I ever brought this up as like the counter example, but like somebody like Thunderfoot, right? Thunderfoot is somebody that genuinely is a liberal. Like, I would believe it because I think he is, right? So Thunderfoot says, by the way, I fucking hate SJWs. And he built this brand, well, not all of it, but a large part of it recently, in the past couple of years after atheism got boring, I guess. He built a large part of his brand off of hating SJWs. Right. And he built a predictable audience. But whenever Thunderfoot makes a video about Trump or Brexit, you don't have to guess what Thunderfoot thinks. I know that he's anti-Brexit and anti-Trump. But when he releases those videos, go and look at the engagement. He's getting thumbs down like a motherfucker. It's crazy how much his fans like revolting at him because of the fan base that he built.
Could I ask a question of you though? Like, do you need somebody to have? Is it easier for you if you when you're talking about somebody or you're trying to understand their position, that they have just a simply one or a zero, like an on or an off for their position on that one thing? Like, is it impossible that the nuance that we don't see is still there? Maybe that's why it's confusing.
No. It's you can have a nuanced position, but you have to have a position. I have a nuanced position on a number of topics. I hate all religion, but I don't like it when people hate on Muslims because I don't think it's that much different than Christianity, right? But I'm very, very passionately atheist. I'm a-religious, I'm atheist, anti-religious, whatever you want to say. I hate fucking religion. But I don't think you should discriminate, right? I have a lot of like kind of positions, like I'm pro-life, believe it or not. Even though I am an atheist and I don't believe in a God, I'm very, very, very staunchly pro-life. We've had a ton of but there are nuance in all these positions. But I have videos on them. I've spoken about them. You never have to guess where I stand on any particular issue. Like, I make it very, very, very clear. And if I was like profiting, like there are positions that I just don't like. Do you understand what I mean when I say like it feels like they navigate things just the perfect way so that they can kind of sit there and cash in on both sides? It's like this rebranding of like, what does it mean to be a liberal? Well, a liberal is hating on every single thing liberals say, but calling yourself a liberal, but never like clarifying your position on fucking anything. Like, okay, that's where like the radical centrist meme comes from, and it's like, well, you're a radical centrist. What does that mean? Well, in Charlottesville, there were some leftists doing some bad things. Oh wait, so do you think well, I'm not saying those guys are right, but man, those leftists, they were real bad. They were that alt leftist. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
I don't know, man. None of that sounds very charitable to me.
Really?
No. Like, okay, so here's the thing. Okay, so think about it like this. A lot of times, these types of independent creators and the people who take these positions, I know for myself, I'm a very liberal guy. I'm a very socially liberal guy. I don't really know how I stand on policy. I kind of go back and forth between several different points of view. But socially, I'm extremely liberal. Just fucking look at me, Jesus Christ. But but the thing is that my big problem that I have with the left is what happens when the values that I like, the values that I hold very true, get adhered to the point where they start becoming a mockery of themselves. And that's when I get very, very upset. Now, for a lot of people, when I say
what do you mean by that?
Well,
can you give like an example?
For instance, like I'm very supportive of gay marriage. I'm very supportive of trans rights. I have many, people that I care about, some that are family members that this is very applicable to. But I absolutely do. I don't buy into the 76 genders. I don't buy into, like rampant, far-ranging trans rights things like we need to be able to pump 12-year-old kids full of puberty blockers. Like, I have a position on that I don't agree. But because I don't agree, that erases all the rest of my liberal values, apparently, for some people, which is very strange to me. Super strange. And I don't really quite understand that. And it's because there is a type of authoritarianism. And that same authoritarianism, make no mistake, it's happening in the right, too. Absolutely. It used to be a specific type, and it was more religiously inclined, but nowadays it's starting to become more policy inclined. There are absolutely authoritarians rising on both sides, and I have a problem with all of them, because authoritarianism is it is antithetical to liberalism. The very spirit of liberalism, the very spirit of freedom and democracy is counter to authoritarianism, and I see it rising on both sides, and I fucking hate it. Now that makes me a centrist by politics, but it makes me still a liberal by social values.
So I understand this to some extent. So here's a big issue that I have with Blair White that I was hoping to nail her on a debate that apparently she dodged out on, but and a number of other people too, okay? And this kind of goes back to where you say, well, they don't want to talk politics, they're just entertainers. A lot of people that are quote unquote just entertainers in the skeptosphere have very strong opinions about, say, the New York transgender legislation. Mm-hmm. Very strong opinions on it, but none of them fucking understand any of about it, what it's about. What have you heard of anything about this or heard people's opinions about it? How you literally forced to. So basically, the way this is presented, and I don't think this is a straw man, because this is what I've seen in videos, the way it's presented is like, if you go to New York, Blair White said this, if you go to New York and you don't recognize 72 genders and call people by Z and Zer or whatever, then you can get fined $100,000. Like, that's not what that legislation was about at all. That legislation was about making it so that if you own buildings, if you're a tenant, you own 4 or more buildings, or if you're an employer, you have employees, that you just can't, if you discriminate against them for being transgender, then the same protections for other types of protected class discriminations are come under that umbrella. So if you have an employee that's like a female that identifies as a man or whatever, and you start saying, she's like, hey, butch, like, come over here, butch, and you just make fun of the fact that they're trans, that now counts as discrimination the same way that it would if you're making fun of their race or their sex or their familial status or ethnicity or whatever, right? The same thing. That's all that legislation was. But if you hear anybody talk about it, like Blair White, they pretend that it's literally authoritarian leftists running around on the street trying to nail you for like accidentally misgendering someone. Like, it's the most ridiculous straw mans in the world.
Well, let me ask you a question then. Is there nothing in the law or in the way that it could be interpreted that might have spurred people to think that?
No. In the Canadian one, maybe the C-16 shit, if you get like really crazy, although I personally never saw a convincing argument for it, but I'll be a little bit more generous than that. But for the New York one, no, it was literally just that. You know how there are protected classes in the US and you get in different kinds of trouble? Like if I call you an asshole at work, it would be a lot different than calling you a muffin, right? Because that's a protected class, there are different discrimination. All that legislation in New York or New York City, is it brought the same protections that you would get for discriminating against a protected class. It moved transgenderism or whatever into that category. That's all it did. Like if you accidentally misgender someone, you're not going to get fined $100,000 or locked in jail. And it only applied to people that owned businesses, employers, and people that leased property. That it was like 4 or more properties, and then it applies to you as well.
That sounds really oddly specific too. It's really weird.
It wasn't some far-reaching over, but you would never know this listening to the people, like, because again, they don't ever engage in real policy debate, which is so fucking frustrating.
I mean, you know, like I said, I didn't look into it, so I can't speak like entirely on the issue. But from what you're saying, I can understand your frustration from that for sure. Then
the same thing with things like Sharia law. What do you think Sharia law is?
I know what Sharia law is.
Wait, but do you? Wait, do you actually? What is Sharia law to you?
Sharia law is basically the tenets that were put out by Muhammad in not the Quran. It's put out in the
Hadith or something?
Hadith.
I don't actually know where it comes from. It might be the Hadith. But like Sharia law is very, it's like your interpretation of that of the Quran law or whatever, like or from the Hadiths or whatever. It's very different based on where you are. So when I hear people like Sargon say shit like they're gonna bring Sharia law, it's like, well, depending on what it is, that's not even really that big of a deal. Like Sharia law in Saudi Arabia is way different than Sharia law in fucking Indonesia. These are two very, very different. Yes.
No, I know.
A state where an elected head of state is a woman is much different in terms of Sharia law than a state where women can't drive.
Sure.
It's very, very, very different.
No, I will grant you that. I will grant you that. But I tell you what, I am never going to be comfortable with is the basic fundamentals of how my government runs being dictated by some book from a magic sky man. I'm sorry. Like, no disrespect to any of my religious friends out there, but like, no, I don't give a fuck how tolerant or nice or wonderful like Sharia law is. in some places, like, I still don't want it because of the basic connotation that means my law is being judged and ruled over by the dictation of a god. Now,
so oftentimes Sharia law is kind of like an extra legal thing where, like, if you do something bad, you go down to your local fucking mosque and maybe you get an extra punishment or penance. It would be kind of similar to, like, we have in the United States, like, you get married, like, there is marriage under the law, and there's also marriage under, like, or at least for Catholics, we have, like, a different kind of marriage too. You have to go to Catholic church. You can't have been married before unless you got that marriage annulled under the eyes of the church. Like, this kind of, but it wouldn't be like there's a Sharia court that you go to. Like, if you murder someone, you go to Sharia court instead of, like, normal court if you're a Muslim. Like, it doesn't, like, replace the legal system that already exists.
I understand. Like, if it's like an extra outside of the law, but it has no actual legal precedent, then I don't really give a fuck what the fuck people do in their own time. You know, that's okay. Well, here's a good example. So I have a patron of mine. He's a wonderful man. He lives in Saudi Arabia. Well, actually, now he lives in Dubai, but he used to live in Saudi Arabia.
Sure.
And he got a DUI in Dubai, in the UAE. And he was explaining to me how Sharia law works in the UAE, and he said for the punishment for a drunk driving is if I go through the government, through the basic law of the UAE, I lose my license for a year and I get an insanely big fee, or I can elect the Sharia punishment, which is I don't lose my license, I have to pay a much more reduced fee, but I have to do 20 lashes in public. And I was like, well, shit, dude. What'd you do? He's like, well, I did not tell anybody this, but I am kind of a masochistic pain slut. So the worst part about that punishment was not crying out harder, daddy, when they whipped me.
Wait, hold on, you just cut off.
Oh, he said the hardest point was when he was getting lashed was not to cry out harder, daddy.
Gotcha.
Now I think that's hilarious, and because it's not my country, I can see, like, you know, okay, I can kind of see how that might work there. My country? No, not okay with it. Not okay with it. We need to maintain ourselves as an absolute secular fucking democracy. Regardless of what inspired our laws now are not dictated by any god. And that allows us to be free to not have to have the strictures of any one religion that allows everybody to practice freely whatever religion they want. And I like that.
And now, I agree with that. Being an atheist, I very much agree with that. I don't want any, but like when you get people who defend Trump's right to say like the Bible was the most important book ever written, which he has said, or when you have people like for instance, let's say that some country in the Gulf went to war with somebody, okay? And their leader was saying, before I went to war, I prayed to Allah, and this is what he told me, right? People would be like, oh my God, Islamic terrorists, like, holy shit, this guy's crazy. But George Bush literally said the same fucking shit before we went to Iraq, like, or before we went to Afghanistan, you know, like, I prayed to God and this is what he showed me. It's like, if he replaced God with Allah, they're like, people would be going fucking crazy. There's like no consistency insofar as like what people will call out. Like, if you want to shit on like Islam or whatever, I'm all for that. I love shitting on religion, but you can't do that while simultaneously defending Christian values too, right? Like, are you familiar with like Lauren Southern?
Painfully aware of Lauren Southern.
Like, Lauren Southern talks all the time about the evils of Islam and then starts slut-shaming the fuck out of, what the fuck was that singer's name? Some singer was angry because she ran into a fan that went up to her boyfriend and was like, oh, dude, like, you're fucking her? Like, oh, dude, are you hitting that or whatever? And she's like, damn, I felt like a piece of meat. Like, it was horrible. And then Lauren's like, oh, yeah? Well, look at what you wear during your shows. And it's like, dude, that's fucking radical Islam, like, right there. Like, you're trying to tell a woman to cover up? Like, what, you want to wear a fucking burqa? Like, what the fuck? Like, you're just a little bit less extreme. You don't see the parallels? You like the hypocrisy? Oh, it was Ariana Grande. Sorry.
Oh, I don't know, man. I've never been a fan of Lauren Southern, to be honest with you. So
sure.
I don't know.
But her rhetoric is like very similar to the rhetoric of a lot of other people I notice. Defending the West and Christian values while shitting on Islam.
Well, yeah, okay. The thing, though, is that, and we also have this really strange tendency right now. People equate Western values means white values, and that's fucking stupid. That's just the most fucking retarded thing I've ever heard in my life, and it's abominable and it's wrong. And it's another thing where we have one side emboldening the other side because you're lending it the credence to go further than it actually is designed for. And it drives me fucking up the wall. Like, so Trump's a Christian, and he says a bunch of stupid Christian shit. Whether he believes it or not, it doesn't matter to me, and I don't care. He can say whatever he wants, and he can have the inspiration to do whatever it is he wants to do. If I think it's wrong, I'll oppose it. If I think that it's too religiously motivated, I will oppose it. And that's how I have to operate. Like, I'm not a fan of Trump. I wasn't a fan of Trump before I even fucking voted for him, and I only voted for him because I was protesting the pointlessness of my vote. But, like, the thing is, when it comes down to the Sharia thing, it's the same thing with any kind of religiously motivated policy making. And this buddy of mine, Sergeant Buck, pointed this out perfectly. This is absolutely perfect. I'd argue that Sharia is bad because it can be interpreted differently depending on the person. Inconsistent laws are useless. And not only that, I would add to that, that when you have a law that's emboldened by a religiosity and it can be interpreted differently, once that is embraced, that allows for it to be changed and adopted depending on what kind of radical fringe elements have the capacity to get their hands in a policy. And right now, this is an important conversation to have because we have actually some pretty fucking strange wingnut radical shit there, people who can affect policy that are in office right now, and I'm not happy about it, you know? So we find ourselves in these interesting situations because you have one side of the social movement sphere that's being pushed by things like mainstream media and college campuses. You have a natural reaction to that, which is people being very critical of it and being very angry about it. And then you have the fringe, which breaks off from that and becomes radicalized and says really crazy shit. Now you get into the question of who is worse, who is the problem, who is the enemy, who is right, and it's such a complicated thing that trying to have a firm stand position on this is damn near fucking impossible.
But I don't agree with that. I don't think it's that complicated.
It is pretty complicated. It is.
I don't think so. Because when I ask people if I say like right now, I think that I could make the objective statement that the right is a million times worse in the U.S. than the left. I think I can make that statement very objectively. And if I were to get into an argument with somebody that wanted to contest that, I would go, okay, well, what are your problems with people on the left? And they would go on, well, SJW culture, PC culture, crazy gay pride, blah blah blah, whatever crazy shit. Okay, how does that manifest itself in policy? What is the left doing that's actively like destroying the country? Like, give me some legislation or some politicians that have said some really fucked up things, not what you've read on Twitter or seen posted on Tumblr. And they'll go like, well, maybe one day, but okay, well, let's talk about problems on the right. We've got climate change denial. We've got a healthcare system that they have proposed no fixes for, yet they want to revoke what we currently have. We have no progress on fucking taxes or any legislation that was promised. We've got a dysfunctional government. We've got weird shit going on with immigration where nobody knows what's going on. We've had 2 EOs that were fucking disastrously kind of implemented, and one being challenged in the court system right now. We've
EOs.
It's horrible. Executive orders.
Yeah. Okay.
The transgender ban, which was pretty anti-trans, that I guess Mattis just said fuck that and isn't actually doing it, and then the travel ban.
I love Mattis. Dude, I love
for the 7 like random Muslim countries that were picked is being challenged to the Supreme Court, I guess. Like these are very real problems that are not only real, they impact, a large number of people in multiple ways every single day. Like these are very real things that are very far-reaching effects. And then when I ask like, well, what are the problems on the left? I'm getting linked like memes on Twitter and Tumblr. It's like these problems are not the same, and they're not at the same level. Like you didn't want to vote for Hillary because of something you read in WikiLeaks, and you don't really like Trump that much, but you don't consider something like a Supreme Court pick to be a monumentally important thing, even though you're left-leaning. You say you're a liberal in every single way, and now we have Gorsuch on the Supreme Court. Like, is that really accomplishing any of your goals?
Not really. I mean, okay, so think about it like this. So over the past, would you agree with or disagree with the statement that over the past 40 decades, America has gotten more liberal?
I don't like. I actually avoid using terms like alt-right and liberal and shit. I try to on my stream now because it's so hard. What do you mean by that? How about like progressive, maybe?
Yeah, it's progressed. It's progressed more into like a more socially accepting or along the lines of how liberalism or progressivism has wanted us to be pointed.
Sure.
I mean, since the 70s. Even with fuck-ups like issues that happen with, say, Reagan and the disastrous war on drugs, or don't even get me started on Bush and the war for oil. Like, even aside from all these types of things.
Okay.
Even aside from these types of things, our country has predominantly been drifting more and more progressive. And
yeah, sure.
I don't think that that's a bad thing. I don't, in general, think that that's a bad thing. However, to say that there is not a natural reaction to that with people who are uncomfortable with it happening as quickly as it is. I mean, obviously there are a lot of people who are not going to accept changes as quickly, and that's just kind of how it is. Does this manifest itself in people trying to enact further far-right policies to try and push back and bounce against it? Probably. I don't support those necessarily. I think we need to at least keep where we're at, maybe redefine some of the things that we do. But if you're getting into a conversation about which is worse, the left or the right, it's such a crazy, complicated fucking thing to try and argue against. It's like arguing, you know, like, let's even break it down to something a little bit simpler, something that's a little bit easier for especially people who are just listening, because it's a very emotional thing, and we're all at least relatively familiar with it. Let's get down to like the fringe extremes, because that's how we're all being judged. You know, I know lots of...
No, but that's,
yes, we
that's
are.
my whole point.
We
that's
are.
how that's not true.
No, we are absolutely.
When I point out problems
absolutely.
in the right, these are problems that come from legislators, from congressmen, and from the president. And then when people counter with problems on the left, they're kids in colleges.
That's the
or like
fringe.
somebody on Twitter.
That's the
but
fringe.
The fringe is the elected officials in Washington. Trump is the president.
Some of them are. How many of the Republican Party actually like Trump right now?
Enough that he's president and people are trying to push through his policy, and we barely didn't have healthcare destroyed. I mean, like...
I think maybe you're not as well versed in some of the public actions and statements of the Republican Party than I am, but they don't like Trump.
I mean, they say that, but
they don't.
Yeah, kind of, sure.
He has the leader of the armed forces saying, "Fuck you! I'm not gonna kick out the trans people." That's because Trump
has made an enemy of every single person that he could.
Including his entire party. His entire
party.
To
some extent, sure, but that doesn't change the fact that these people push policy and that Trump was elected, and these are not fringe elements of U.S. politics. And even mainstream, like neo-Republican or neo-conservative thought is still pretty cancerous, even compared to whatever the fuck you call Trump's movement.
Here's the thing. Since all of this crazy fringe radical stuff has been happening, and since Trump has been in office and that sort of thing, I take
real quick,
time.
Your mic keeps cutting out a little bit. I don't know if it's like a voice activation thing. Or...
It must... Sorry. I don't know what the fuck it is. Maybe it's like Discord and I need to like...
Alright, sorry, go ahead.
Let me try... There. I cranked up my sensitivity on that shit, so hopefully that fixes it. So since Trump has been elected, I have very specifically gone out and I've talked to lots of people around in my community, that sort of thing. As liberal and as blue as Oregon is, there is you know when you're talking to a conservative, you know when you're talking to a Republican. And I have found so much more common ground than I ever have before prior to this past year with conservatives and Republicans, because everybody sees how insane everything is on both sides. You've got your fucking alt-righters with their fucking tiki torches being, "It was spooky," over in Charlotte. You got your Antifa running around breaking a bunch of shit. And then you got this fucking clown, you know, acting like a goddamn retard in the highest office in the land. Nobody's happy about it. Average, everyday, common people are not very happy about it. Now, people want to, especially if they're a Republican, they want to be happy with Trump. They want to give him the benefit of the doubt. They want to see if he's actually going to be able to pull off anything that's going to serve them, because that is the perspective that they're coming from, because they felt, well, either disillusioned or left out of society or in some way alienated by the past 8 years with Obama. Whether their reasons are valid or not is irrelevant. It just simply is a matter of their perception and where they're coming from. So when it comes down to, and you're trying to talk about, like, you're trying to talk about the policies, and you're trying to talk about the parties and that sort of thing, it is grossly inappropriate to simply label anybody on the right, or anybody who's conservative, or anybody who identifies as Republican, as being as fringe crazy or wing nutty as Trump, because they're not. These are just people. They're just regular.
So you don't think it's fair to say, so if I were to ask somebody whether or not they believe climate change is real and they say it's a hoax, you don't think it's fair to say that that person is almost 95% a Republican versus a Democrat, or conservative versus a liberal?
I mean, it's a pretty safe assumption, sure. Pretty safe
Yeah,
assumption.
I mean, like, there are positions. If I were to ask, like, do you think that we should build the wall, that will help our immigration problems? Do you think that this person is likely to be right-leaning or left-leaning? Or if I were to ask somebody if we should abolish healthcare and go back to what we had before, would they be right-leaning or left-leaning? Or like, these are really important policy questions that mostly, like, you can draw pretty easy party lines for people that believe this stuff.
Right, and I understand that, and I would agree that you can make some of these broad assumptions, absolutely. But the problem is,
and these problems existed before Trump. The Tea Party existed before Trump was ever around running for president.
Don't even get me started on the Tea Party. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. So these types of situations that you're talking about, these types of policy discussions, these positions, these political positions that people have, these aren't extreme radicalized positions.
Not believing in climate change that's a pretty radical position at this point.
But it's not. It's not a radical position. It's not, because
it absolutely is.
No, it's not. And here's the reason why it's not is because it's a trope. It's a specific set in motion tendency and a structured belief. Whether that belief is correct or not, it's still there. Being a Christian is not a radical fucking belief, but we can prove that he's not there. We can prove that he's not there, but we also can't prove that he's not there. But it's not a radical position. It's not a radical position for somebody to be like, I believe.
What are you defining as radical? Okay, maybe we get our definitions.
My definition of radical is something that is so far off the marker of what people accept. Like, people who say we need an ethno-state, we need to kick out the darkies. That's pretty fucking radical. People who are saying, if you misgender me and my 76 genders and you can't read my mind, then I think you should go to jail. Or fuck all white people. Or fuck all black people. Any of these are radicalized positions because most people don't believe them. Most people are good, honest, hardworking, kind people. I genuinely believe that. Now, if somebody doesn't believe in climate change, that does not make them a bad person. It doesn't make them radical. It means you need to convince them. If you label somebody a radical because of their political position, you have alienated that person, and you will not be able to convince them that climate change is real. You just lost.
You reach people though that don't want to listen to anything.
By being extremely persuasive and building a very large audience based upon saying things that people really want to hear, and then as you do so, you very casually and slowly introduce these items that might challenge their worldview and allow them to possibly see things from a different perspective and judge for themselves.
Okay, so
you can't be subversive.
This is a quick Google. Like, this is of 2016, okay?
Yeah.
Almost 50% of Republicans still believe that Obama was born in Kenya after he produced his long-form birth certificate. What do you need to, like, aside from a video of Obama emerging from a vagina and then pulling back the video and then moving it around to prove that you're in Hawaii or whatever and not on some, like, elaborate set? How do you convince somebody like this of what the truth is? I don't know. These are radical beliefs. If it requires an extraordinary leap of faith, it's a radical belief. When you start inventing new sciences and technologies to explain your conspiracy, I think it becomes a radical belief. I think climate change denial at this point is a pretty radical belief, like believing in the birther argument, that Obama was born in Kenya. That's pretty radical.
I can't believe we went to birthers.
I mean, Trump supported it. Trump said it. What about Trump's administration coming out and siding with the people that say that you should be able to not sell cakes to gay people if you want to? Like, that's a. What about Trump's comments on the judge that wasn't allowed to rule in his case because his parents were from Mexico? Like, these are pretty extreme statements. Trump still has 80% approval from Republicans as of the last poll from a week ago. Like, it's not like all these people are hating him. Like, these are all pretty radical beliefs. When I say radical, I mean extremely ignorant, very easily, like, arguable, like that they're insane. But a lot of these people, they get all their news from Facebook or YouTube, and it's like, what do you say to these people?
Well, you don't tell them there's more than two genders, that's for sure.
So, like, okay, I'm so glad you said it. I'm so glad you said that, because it's like, that's like my point distilled to a single thing. Because what I'm bringing up are very real, very important things that manifest themselves in policy that is shaping the future.
But
and
you're
the counter to that, is like, well, what about some of the liberals at the colleges that want to say Zer and Sim? Who cares about these people?
No. Hang on. The thing is, you're taking these policy positions and you're dumbing them down into just simply this is radical and it's fucking wrong and it's stupid.
Wait, undumb it down for me then. Could you give me a valid explanation for Obama being born in Kenya, for an American federal judge not being allowed to rule on a Trump case?
But I don't believe that. I don't.
What do you mean?
I'm not a birther. I'm not a birther.
But you're saying that these aren't radical positions, or that climate change is a hoax perpetuated by China to make our manufacturing less competitive? These are statements from the President of the United States.
Well, he's an idiot. What do you want me to say?
He's like 80% approval rating from Republicans, and he's failed on every single thing he's tried to do. Like,
then you need to convince people away from his position. And you
I don't disagree with that. That's my goal. But
the reason why I mentioned the two genders thing is because the way in which things are framed in this ideological fight right now, you have people who believe things on the right, you have people who believe things on the left. Shouting the wingnutty shit from each side at each other is not going to get either of them talking to each other.
Okay, this is the radical centrist. This is the radical centrist position that I'm talking about right now. This is what you're holding. You're trying to say these radical these aren't radical in the way that they're uncommon. These are commonly held Republican beliefs versus insanely fringe leftist beliefs. Do you think the average fucking 45-year-old Democrat that was a factory worker believes in 27 genders? Do you think the average
depends on where they live?
From like Michigan or West Virginia, do you think like a blue dog Democrat here is believing in like 52? Like, these aren't like averagely held Democratic positions.
Yeah, well, they're being taught in colleges though. You can't say that this is just simply like these aren't like little insulated groups of fucking basement Marxists sitting there fucking smoking. No, they're fucking not, dude. No, they're fucking not.
Like colleges are literally like Marxism factories now. This is not true.
Steve, can I ask you a question, Steve?
Yeah.
When was the last time that you were in a college?
I don't know. A few years ago, I went in because I got my STD test there for free.
Nice.
So I went there like 5 years ago.
Okay, so I was attending university 2 years ago before I had to stop to take care of my kid. And I was a non-traditional student. I was going back. I was 32 at the time. Going into it, I can tell you firsthand that all of the shit that Sargon says, like, how crazy these college campuses are. Yes, it's fucking real, and it's everywhere. I went to 2 different universities. I graduated first from a community college, started going to Oregon State, and then moved over to the University of Oregon. They were just as fucking bad. Part of me being able to get a biology course was I had to take 3 different social justice classes, and they were called social justice classes. The first one that I took, and the only one that I took because I had to stop because I wanted to kill myself, was a diversity in film, because it was the least shit awful sounding one I could possibly find. Some of them,
okay, wait, hold on,
some of them were insane.
So you got a BS in biology.
I was trying. I never got a chance to get my bachelor's in biology. I had to stop before I finished.
Were you going for a BA in biology or BS?
Yes.
Okay, you were going for a Bachelor of Science in Biology, and as part of that degree requirement at this university, you had to have 3 social justice classes?
Yes, sir!
And are you sure they weren't just like liberal arts classes, or 3?
You know what I'll do? I'll look around in some of my paperwork. I'll try and find the list that I had to go home with. I showed it to memory, and you know what's fucking crazy too? The list was only for fall term, and the list had over 40 classes
for
social justice classes.
40 social justice classes?
Like they were labeled social justice. They were labeled. There was 3 categories. There was one that was diversity studies. There was one that was cultural and ethnic studies, and all of them were like understanding whiteness, the deconstruction of black oppression. Like, this is a real fucking class name, okay? The real fucking class name. I could have taken this fucking thing.
Are you sure it's not just like humanities classes or like arts and humanities
that's
or something?
That's what they turned humanities into, dude. There wasn't a normal one in them. They were all fucking insane. Every single one. The only one that didn't sound awful was diversity in film. I took that class, we started talking, I made it through like the first 3 weeks. We got into a point where we were talking about the depiction of Asians in early American cinema. And that's something that I feel very passionate about, too, because I don't think that we have enough Asians in cinema. I really honestly don't, and it's unfortunate, and how we depicted Asians before was really fucked up. But, as a correlative, I also, in my paper, wrote about the fact that when you have a Japanese film and there's Chinese in it, they're always the villain, and they're always depicted by the Koreans. When you have a Korean film and the Japanese are in it, they're always the villains, and they're depicted by Koreans. And I brought this up as a relative measure to how this is actually not just an American thing, but is endemic with East Asian cultures as well. I got an F. I got a fucking F from that teacher who said, no, we're concentrating on how white people depicted Asians. And what's fucked up about this is my paper was posted on the class fucking forum. My class was 60% Asian exchange students, and all of them had favorable comments on it saying, yes, that's exactly how it is in my home country. This is actually how it fucking works. This is not fringe shit, dude. I experienced it. I was there. I was literally there.
I mean, I can't argue against your anecdote, so I don't know what to say. I mean, I went to college for music, and I don't remember the social justice classes. I'd be very curious to see, like, a course requirement that, like, lists, like, social justice classes. That would be interesting to me, but...
It's awful, dude. It was so awful. So awful. And that's what basically made me get completely fed up with it, and why I was like, this is really fucking crazy, because this is not all right. Like, I am liberal. This was at Oregon State University, you said?
Yes,
Oregon State University. They had they had segregated retreats at Oregon State University too. You can look this up. You can find this easily on a Google search. Oregon State University, racialized retreats, where they had different retreats for students that they could sign up for. If you were white, you had to go to one, and if you were non-white, you could go to another. The white one was all about deconstructing whiteness and talking about how you yourself are you yourself are basically born into a system that makes you an oppressor, and you have to break that system through all this different kind of crazy shit. The other one, my favorite class name that they had for this retreat was called Racial Aikido, and it was all about just using like allegorical Aikido moves, but in mental gymnastics to try and deflect the racism that you see in things like, I don't know, television and bathroom signs and whatever the fuck, you know. But like this is it's just it's real and it's out there.
Well, I mean, it's real, and I guess I haven't seen it yet, but it's real at least the one college that you went to.
And Mizzou and Berkeley, Evergreen, fucking anywhere that there is a very strong liberal arts presence in the college, you're gonna end up finding this a lot. It just is what it is. You know where you're never gonna find this?
Where?
Christian colleges.
Sure.
It's not a point. I was just making. I don't know. It's just a thing.
You can go to Hillsdale College. I used to get ads for them back when I was a libertarian. I don't know.
Yeah.
Rush Limbaugh goes to speak there sometimes.
Does he really? I want to go see Rush Limbaugh speak. That'd be interesting. I don't know, man. Like, the thing is, I just think that it would be wildly beneficial to try and separate the idea of radical as a concept. When if you label something as radical, then you're cutting yourself off from ever being persuasive and ever being able to turn people to a better idea or a better way of thinking. Because there's one simple rule that I always try to live my life by, and that's you cannot be subversive if you are not successful. It's as simple as that. You can't change anything if you're not successful. You can't get your ideas across if they're not compelling. You can't change shit if all you do is put up a wall. And some things are worth putting up a wall against, like fucking white nationalism or ethno-states. That's worth putting up a fucking wall against because it's just simply retarded. But even somebody saying some of the most ignorant, crazy, maybe it's the worst thing for you, like a conservative talking point or a Republican talking point, doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It also means that that person might possibly be able to modify or evolve their points of view to something that you might agree with more. But they won't if you call them radical, and they won't if you alienate them. We can't make everybody into Donald Trump clones. It's not going to help us. It's going to hurt us more in the process. And that's the fight that I have to deal with every day. I don't know.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I don't know. It's just something to think about. I mean,
I don't disagree. I don't like alienating people, but I mean,
I don't know. Maybe it's just a difference on like how you and I conceptualize things. I mean, words mean different things to different people. Maybe that's all it is. I don't know. But I need to poop really bad. You should not call people Uncle Toms. Please don't.
Dude, what does that mean to you?
I just see it happen a lot to many of my friends, and I know there's different reasons for it. And I won't speak to any motivations, but like I will tell you, I will tell you from knowing I'll share something with you, and I usually don't mention this online ever, but almost half my family is black by marriage. My sister is married to a wonderful man. They have 4 beautiful children. I love them very much. My nieces and my nephew. And as much as they might be half white, they don't look white. You know, they're very dark. And so I'm very invested. You know, a lot of people get mad at me like, why the fuck are you talking about black issues, blah, blah, blah. You're not black, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, it's true. It means I can't necessarily totally understand, but I am fucking invested. My family is part of this struggle. So, and in talking to them, they have to deal with being called a muffin. Because it's just going to happen. My beautiful little nieces are going to have to grow up having people from time to time call them a muffin. And I hate that. I fucking find it disgusting, but I can't stop it either. However, I can find of nothing more rude, nothing more hideously offensive than somebody calling them an Uncle Tom. Because that's more disempowering than just simply, oh, I hate you. Because muffin could be something as simple as asshole. Like, oh, well, people call me an asshole all the fucking time. You can compartmentalize it away to just simply somebody being angry and trying to hurt your feelings. But when you call somebody an Uncle Tom, effectively what you're saying is that their own positions, their beliefs, the things that they hold true, or the position that they're taking at the time is somehow endemically antithetical to the very nature of how they were born. And I to me, and to a few people, they find it really fucked up. And I know it's very casually said a lot of times, but that was probably one of the main reasons why I wanted to talk, because you and I hadn't talked in a while, but that was definitely something that I wanted to say. I know you probably don't mean it with such a great gravity that some people might perceive it.
I mean,
which is why I'm not like
what you're talking about. Like, for to some extent, yeah. I mean, so my understanding of what an Uncle Tom is, and what I've always heard it referenced as, is you typically stand in as the token whatever and then that's like carte blanche to discriminate against whatever. So the right has very popular kind of Uncle Tom-esque figures. So you have people like Blair White, that is like your trans Uncle Tom. So what she does is she becomes a mouthpiece to say all the anti-trans stuff you want, but then when people say, oh, so you hate trans people, we go, oh, no, look, Blair White, she's trans. So, by the way, you're not really a woman. You just have a wound made by a surgery. LGBT is all cancer. That whole community is cancer. And then anytime somebody says like, oh, okay, well, you're anti-trans, you're very homophobic. You're like, oh, nope. Look, Blair White. See, she's trans and she said it. Or Milo Minneapolis is another example. Like, oh, well, so it seems kind of like you're really homophobic. You hate gay people. It's like, well, no, actually, because look, Milo Yiannopoulos said all these things, that he would never hire gay people, that he hates gay people, that he's a self-hating gay, that he thinks gays are lazy, right? He said all these things, and look, he's gay, so you can't call me homophobic, right? And then you see every now and then you'll get black people that'll stand up and they'll be like, oh, well, look, Black Lives Matter is all cancer, it's all a horrible movement, which this lady has said on her channel before I watched the video, where she talks about how BLM is all just an issue of extremists and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, well, wow, BLM is all cancer, and, you know, there are, like, all of that shit is, like, just bullshit to you? Like, yeah, it's horrible. And it's like, okay, that seems okay, kind of racially charged. Like, no. Look, I've got this black person here that says it for me, so you can't call me racist. Alan B. West is a great example. Look, I got this black person here that says all of the things that I hate about black people, but he says it and he's black, so it's okay, so he does it, right? Those kinds of like token figures seem to be like a real popular thing on the right.
Maybe on the right, but okay. Think about it like this. So I'm not on the right. I'm not on the right, but I also like several of those people as well. Or I find some of the talking points that they actually bring up quite compelling and quite interesting. The thing, let's start with Blair. The number of people that I've seen say I very much was opposed to trans people because I was afraid of them. I thought that they were disgusting or horrendous, or they were all trying to like force me into some sort of ideology that I did not believe. But I found you, Blair, and you've opened my eyes that there are trans people that I can agree with politically that don't seem to be wanting to push some sort of ideology down my throat. Now, for those people, is that just simply irrelevant? I mean, because I don't think it's irrelevant. The thing is, if you dumb down Blair White is just simply a, she's an Uncle Tom trans, or she's a Toka trans, or that's something like that. That takes away the very basic fundamental power that she has as a trans person. Like, oh, well, it doesn't matter that you're trans because you say the wrong things and you're not trans enough. Or you're not trans in the way that I'm happy that you're trans. And all of this doesn't have anything to do with trans. It has everything to do with her politics and her position. It removes the basic...
she stands in and says all of the hateful shit that people on the right generally say about trans people. But because she's...
So what? That's her position. That's her belief. That's her fucking opinion, man. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that she's trans. It's just still her fucking position.
But that's where a lot of that's why these people become such iconic, popular figures. Like, do you think Milo would be as popular if he wasn't gay? Do you think Blair White would be as popular? She doesn't really offer anything new or any kind of new critique or any kind of info. Well, it's literally the fact that she's our trans person that says these horribly anti-trans things. Thank God we have her. Now we can, she's our fucking mouthpiece.
Well, okay, let's be fair. Milo completely created himself out of thin air. He was, 6 months before Gamergate, he was the biggest SJW on the fucking planet. With the most beautiful Jufro. Holy shit. Oh my god, it was amazing. Anyway, but here's the thing. It doesn't matter if their position is not something that you don't like. It doesn't take away from the fact that they're still trans. And by simply being like, well, you're just a Toka trans. They only like you because you are from their bias. Well, that's fine. That's totally fine to say that people only like you because you are from their bias. But by trying to say that they're an Uncle Tom denotes not a token, but an Uncle Tom means that you are specifically condemning them, that they don't actually believe the things that you require them to believe to be the thing that they are. Blair White is trans, whether you like her or not. Whether she holds any kind of political positions that you have or not, she's still fucking trans. And she doesn't have to think one thing or the other. You can critique her behavior. That's totally fine. You can critique the things that she says. That's totally fine. But to take it into the point where you're saying she's an Uncle Tom is effectively calling her a traitor to something that she never even has any fucking control over anyway. She was born. It's a very natural process. She's trans because she can't not be trans. So
I think the reason why these people are generally considered traitors is because they claim to speak for, like, if you listen to like a lot of Blair White's kind of videos, she'll say things like, oh, well, these guys don't speak for all trans, like, this is what, as a trans, this is as a trans, this is as a trans, and then she echoes a lot of the same, like, pretty horrible anti-trans rhetoric, and then gives power to the idea that, like, okay, well, look, there are trans people that think these crazy anti-trans things, so now we can continue to hate them the same way that we did before, and she'll function as our mouthpiece for that.
People are gonna fucking hate trans people whether Blair exists or not.
Yeah, but these kinds of shields and rhetoric devices like exist to give you like ways to legitimize whatever fucked up hate thoughts.
What is that legitimacy? What does that legitimacy buy though? What does it buy?
I don't know. I mean, it buys a YouTube channel with 500,000 subs, I guess, and somebody that a lot of people get to point to say like, well, I'm not really. How many people defend Trump's gay shit? Even Blair White did this. Even fucking Shoe on Head, the dipshit, did this, where people are like, look at Trump, he loves gay people. Like, why does he love gay people? Look, he held up a flag. Because he held up the LGBT flag upside down. People are like, oh, look, he really loves gay people. And then everybody, I think Blair White and Shoe on Head included, acted all surprised when Trump turned out to be a major fucking gay hater. I wonder if Pence was like any indication of that. But like, yeah, and then we get these videos like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. I remember Shoe on Head's video with the...
So, hang on. So your problem is that Trump goes up there, the very first Republican candidate in fucking history, holds up an LGBT flag, and people were like, holy shit, maybe he actually is kind of cool with the gays. Wow. How can you have a problem with people thinking that? Because
anybody that had a modicum of intelligence would know that that's not true. These were lazy positions held by lazy commentators. Because you don't nominate somebody like fucking throw him on the Pence, Mike Pence. If you...
You're being such Captain Hindsight right now. That's not
what?
fair.
No,
that is not fair.
No, that's
not
the
fair.
centrist position. That's where you go. Well, there's no way we could have known that Trump would be anti-gay. Like maybe Pence was just there to appease the event. How could we have possibly known this bullshit? Plenty of people, me included, because I was following this election for a long fucking time. But it was very fucking obvious what Trump was going to be when he was in office. He hasn't been surprising at all. He didn't surprise. Well, he's been surprising for how horrible he's been, I guess. But like nothing that Trump has done has come as a shock. He hasn't there's no hindsight here. Everything was incredibly predictable from day one.
Nobody saw the flag and knew that Trump was pro-gay.
But he never made statements on gay rights or anything in the fucking past. Like, why
yes,
was
he had. Reason? Yes, he had.
He's made a ton of, he has no solid... He is the embodied centrist. Remember how he's saying now that, oh, well, I always called Iraq as being fucking horrible, blah, blah, blah. That's bullshit. He never said that. He's always made a lot of wishy-washy, politically expedient... Kind of like Hillary Clinton, politically expedient statements in the past.
He's a politician.
No, he's not.
He's a businessman and a politician.
There you go. He wasn't a politician before he ran for office.
Oh, come on. They're really not that far, but... Okay, all right. Hang on, okay.
What? No, wait. You can't... This was the whole argument for Trump, was that he wasn't a politician.
I didn't make that argument. Anyway, so here's the problem. Here's the problem. Jesus Christ. This is absolutely Captain Hindsight 2020. Look, okay. Trump has said pro-LGBT things in the past. When he was asked for a quote about the transgender bathroom thing way back in the day, when he was still just fucking doing the Trump Towers and shit like that, his quote was effectively, just let people piss where the fuck they want. I don't care. That's a pretty firm statement of this is retarded and stupid and that we shouldn't be trying to ban them out of bathrooms. Now, the thing is, you say that now Trump is no fan of the gays. How is he not a fan of the gays? And don't say the trans thing, because that's splitting hairs and adding everybody in together, like gay people.
Okay, how about a few days ago, the administration came out and they said that they supported the decision where people that bake cakes shouldn't have to bake cakes for gay people. You should be able to discriminate against people based on their sexuality.
So? It's a fucking cake, dude. I still don't understand the whole cake thing. I still don't understand the whole fucking cake thing. It's so ridiculous to me.
It's the idea that a business shouldn't be able to discriminate against you based on your sexual preferences.
Well, how do the fuck do they even know what your sexual preferences are?
Who knows? Maybe you come in with another guy and you're holding hands, and the restaurant owner says, "Hey, get out of here. We don't accept fluffins here. Get out." Fluffins. And you're like, "Oh, well, we have to leave, I guess, because we're gay, and now that's okay."
You know, that's a really tough one, to be honest with you. But okay, so
Dave, here's
a question for you. Here's a question though for you, because a lot of times when we start talking about things like this, when you get into the cake thing and whatnot, that conversation got really messed up when people were talking about it originally, because a lot of politicians seem to be coming out in favor of discrimination against gay people when what they were really arguing for was they believed in the states' rights to make that distinction for themselves.
Okay, but we don't believe in this as Americans. We've already decided federally that we don't believe in this. We have protected classes. You're not allowed to override those as a state.
Do we have
if you want to take that to the Supreme Court, but if you look up protected classes in the United States, you'll see that there are certain classes of people that you can't discriminate against: national origin, familial status, age, if you're over 40 or 50, veteran status, race.
What specifically are you not? In what ways are you not specifically allowed?
You can't discriminate against these. You can't make decisions based upon with this as a consideration. So, for instance, let's say that I fire some guy and I'm like, "Get the fuck out of here!" And then as you're walking out, you hear me say, "I'm glad I fired that dude. We don't need fucking 52-year-olds working here." You're like, "Oh well, fuck. I'm taking you to court for age discrimination. You can't fire me just because of my age." There has to be other things stated, or because of your race, or because of your gender, or because of your sexual identity. You can't. "Oh, you fire me because I'm gay. I'm taking you to a fucking court." That's a violation. That's race or sexual whatever is a protected class. You're not allowed to discriminate on that basis.
It is kind of weird, though.
What do you mean?
It's a little weird. I mean, I got fired once for being white, and that was kind of irritating. Actually, I got fired
for being white.
Yeah, I didn't just get fired for being white. I got fired for being white and for being an American citizen.
That's not you could have taken him to court and won a little pretty penny. I mean,
yeah, I know, but I decided against it because the thing was it was a framing shop, and they wanted to replace me with an immigrant worker, with an illegal immigrant. Most of the shop was illegal immigrants, except for two positions. It was me and my buddy. and they fired me. But the reason why I didn't is because ultimately, if I called attention to the fact of what they were doing, all the people in there were going to lose their fucking jobs, for one, and for two, the owner was a piece of shit. He's the one who fired me, but the manager was a really cool guy, and I didn't want to cause any waves. And the job sucked anyway. It was fucking awful. But I don't know. It's just strange to me because I understand the reasons for having anti-discrimination laws. I really honestly do, but to say that they're an absolute or that you can take them to the absolute extremes, I am not convinced and I'm not sold on. I don't think a lot of people are either, because there are really compelling people with a lot of really compelling talking points talking about how it can be abused or how it's going to be.
Wait, can you give me one of those compelling talking points?
Well, that's not compelling. It's not compelling for me. But
but you said there were a lot of people with a lot of compelling. I just want to know what one of them are.
Okay.
What's a compelling talking point against protected classes in the U.S.?
So let's think about it like this. There is, say, a small town in like rural Ohio or Pennsylvania or somewhere in the Midwest, and they have suffered from factory closings and this, that, and the other thing. There's lots of jobs that are missing. A lot of people who are having trouble feeding their families. And then they turn on the news, they turn on CNN, and they hear all about these protected classes, and it brings up things like Mexican workers, DACA, dreamers, these types of things. And to them, from their perspective, their position, they see the opportunities being awarded to other people or the protections given to people that are so different from them, and they are themselves left in some sort of financial ruin.
Well, wait, but the protections are for everybody. You shouldn't be allowed to be fired because you're white or anything.
Well, you shouldn't. That's true, and I would agree with you. But the thing about it is this isn't really talking about necessarily in a scope of fairness. We're talking in a scope of perception and where people are coming from and how they're going to be viewing these types of things. So I'm not arguing against protected classes.
Wait, so people that are in a poor town view the fact that people can't get fired because of their race is hurting them?
It depends on how it's sold to them. That's what I'm talking about. You have to be compelling about these things when you're talking about them. And there are a lot of people that have a way to spin it to make it sound really fucked up that people will start to believe it. It's just how it is. And again, like this, even if somebody was to take these positions, somebody who, for instance, doesn't like immigration, they're afraid of Mexicans coming in and this sort of thing. Say you have somebody who is afraid of that. That's not a fringe position either. It's a position born out of the situation that they're in and whoever has been selling them or compelling them to that type of behavior, that type of position. So the impetus really is to try and find a way to compel people into thinking outside of the box or outside of the ways in which they've been spoon-fed this kind of shit.
Sure, I don't disagree with that. And I don't disagree. You keep giving me this general sentiment where, like, we need to be tolerant of people that have kind of crazy views because it's the way to bring them over. But it doesn't seem like any of the people that you mentioned that you're friends with have any view in doing that. Do you think that a liberal watches Sargon's videos calling SJWs and feminists cancerous fucking toxic people that caused Elliot Rodgers to go out and kill people? Do you think that people watch Sargon's videos and go like, oh, wow, that's a really good point. I'm not going to be a feminist anymore?
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait, you think that left-leaning people that identify as feminists will watch a Sargon video where he relentlessly shits on feminists and strawmans the fuck out of them and gives them the most ridiculous positions ever? They're going to watch his videos and they're going to go, oh, that's a really good point. I'm not going to be a feminist anymore. You think that happens?
Yeah.
How?
All the time.
Well, if it works for them, then why can't people on the left just continue to be fucking crazy and savage as fuck about what they say then to people on the right?
Because people on the left don't make as much sense as Sargon does. I mean, it's I don't know if it's the answer that you want, but it's the answer I got, man. I'm sorry. It just is what it is, you know. Like I said, you know, the best thing any of us can do is just try and be compelling, you know.
All right, sure thing. You have to go take your poop.
I need to make boom boom, man. I need to make boom boom. Thanks for taking the time to hang out with me, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for the conversation, buddy.
All right, cool. I'll talk to you again soon.
Yep.
And I need to put myself into, here we go. So for everybody who's watching live, I am really sorry I kept banging my desk. I have this really super cheap scissor arm for my really expensive microphone, but it's a piece of shit, so the heavy microphone just like kind of weighs it down. It has to rest down. So I have it balanced on a water bottle, so all the vibration when I slap my desk like goes straight through the fucking microphone. It's really irritating. I apologize for that. I really didn't. I wasn't intending that, but I also couldn't stop slapping my desk. Like I saw you guys saying stop slapping, and I just couldn't. I couldn't stop. Couldn't stop. Some people super chatted. I just put in the description. I wasn't gonna read super chat until afterwards, so I'll do it real quick. Sergeant Buck. I paid you have to say awful things every weekend. Hey. Liberal lunacy. I am Kekistan. Damn right. We're all Kekistan. Prince. Guys, can you not talk about other people? Jeez. Do this back to the main topic. Steve talked to Sargon or Lauren directly. Me and Steve have this tendency that we just kind of go. And it just kind of goes everywhere. It happened last time, too. I mean, whatever. It's fine. We didn't even really talk about the topic that much. Wendy Thomas for Destiny complained to the group of shit posters as a focus on super hard policy. Egad, the absurdity is supreme. I mean, you know, it depends on which type of shit poster he's talking about. It's one thing that I don't think is very fair. A lot of people will make broad proclamations or condemnations about a whole series of people who make videos. We all make very different content. I mean, it might not seem like it sometimes, especially when we all, like, jump onto the same topic like sharks. But, you know, at the core of it, a lot of us do very different things. Dave Campbell, so the New York trans law is just like any other law, that it dictates the words that you must use instead of prohibiting what you should not say. I don't know, man. I need to look into these trans laws more so I can be well informed. I kind of like skipped out on reading any of that. Sergeant Bach, I'd argue that Sharia is bad because it can be yeah, that was a great one, dude. Thank you for that. That was a really good point. He said, Sergeant Buck also says, I'm in university now. All my profs are state-mandated wealth reallocation, and my lit theory class was all Marx and social feminism. Yeah, there's a lot. And it always surprises people, too, when they hear that it is actually that bad. They don't think it is. They think it's just blown out of proportion, but it's not, dude. It's all over the place. Burnout cold, you don't get to rob people of their identity. Damn right. I hope you guys had a good time listening to me and Steve go back and forth. Having a good old time. Shout outs to all my lovelies out there. Aw, wonderful people. There's too many of you to say hello to. I am gonna go drop an enormous shit. I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Yeah, get your I Am Kekistan videos into me soon. Bye, everybody.